Isaiah 25 and 26. And these two chapters are a continuation of the apocalypse of Isaiah. In other words, his prophecy of the end times. And perhaps you think that what we study, we go over and over and over, and it's repetitive. It is. God is rather like a third grade teacher. He drives home over and over and over those things that we are to understand, and many of Isaiah's prophecies have come to pass. He prophesied the coming of the Messiah. Psalm 22, written 1,000 years before the crucifixion, details exactly how it went down, even to the very words that the old high priest would speak. We can, the point is, count on God and His Word. And He keeps telling us over and over, when we put our trust in Him, when we have bothered to learn and to know, we have absolutely nothing to fear. This 25, we will start here with chapter 1, and it's a verse of mercy and praise. O Lord, thou art my God. I will exalt thee. I will praise thee. I will praise thy name, for thou hast done wonderful things. Thy counsels of old are faithfulness and truth, and that is true. His counsel, what he has counseled us to do, is to stay in truth, and we know the truth from the Word, and we are to be faithful. 2. For thou hast made of a city a heap, of a defenced city a ruin, a palace of strangers to be no city, and it shall never be built. And when is that city a heap? And when is it a defenced place of a defenced city, a ruin? It is when Babylon takes it over, and then again when the king of Babylon comes in, there won't be any building. There will be ruin at the end when Jesus does come, and it will be cleaned out. 3. Therefore shall the strong people glorify thee, the name of the terrible nations shall fear thee. Those strong people are the elect. These are those souls in the first earth age, 7,000 in a symbolic number, who stand against Satan, and God will count on this remnant, these elect, to stand against Satan in the last age, because they will know. The Bible will tell us what tomorrow brings, and we are not to be afraid. He never does bring harm to those who love Him. It is only those who need chastising and those who have turned that He moves against. 4. For thou hast been a strength to the poor, a strength to the needy in his distress, a refuge from the storm, a shadow from the heat, when the blast of the terrible ones is as a storm against the wall. And we are told in Ezekiel 38 that God is our wall, and He will protect us against the terrible one and his followers, and that is Satan. We have nothing at all to fear when he comes as the Antichrist, if we happen to be on earth. and he will provide a shadow as an umbrella from the heat, and he will bring everything that is needed because he will provide a wall. In fact, today we have a wall of protection when we put our hopes and our strengths and our faith in our God. 5. Thou shalt bring down the noise of strangers as the heat in a dry place, even the heat with the shadow of a cloud. The branch of the terrible ones shall be brought low, and that is going to happen. At the end, they will be brought down, and the wicked one will be removed permanently at the very end. And this will be after the end of the millennium, when those who have already been sentenced to the pit will be removed forever. Verse 6. And in this mountain shall the Lord of hosts make unto all people a feast of fat things, a feast of wines on the lees, of fat things full of marrow, of wines of the lees well refined, the very best wonderful grapes that are grown on the meadows, producing a superior grape and a good wine. And this is to say that the very best will be for those who do hold. And think about the wine there. It is part of our communion, and it is representative of the blood of Christ. And of course, that is the very best. Excuse me. 7. And he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all people, and the veil that is spread over all the nations. And that mountain is Mount Zion, and the world has a veil. It's hiding behind ignorance and false teaching. And I would remind you of Ezekiel 13, where God warns that he does not wish to have covering sewn over the arms of his people in a false kind of a protection. And he also says in that chapter, I am against those who teach my people to fly. And that veil at the end that is spread out, and remember, a veil hides. It provides a widow's veil. I think a veil worn in mourning, and especially to a funeral, was to hide her eyes swollen from tears and to hide her grief and give her some privacy. But that veil, that hiding, are Satan's lies that he will put forth. 8. He will swallow up death in victory. Who swallows death in victory? Well, that is none other than Jesus. And Hebrews 2:14 explains that also. And the Lord God will wipe away tears from all the faces, and the rebuke of his people shall he take away from off all the earth, for the Lord hath spoken. And this ought to remind us of the verse in 1 Corinthians 15, grave, where is thy victory, and death, where is thy sting? Because it has been overcome, and it is true that tears will be wiped away. 9. And it shall be said in that day, and that is the Lord's day, the day beginning the millennium, Lo, this is our God. We have waited for him, and he will save us. This is the Lord, capital L-O-R-D, the sacred name, Ea Asher Ea. We have waited for him. We will be glad and rejoice in his salvation. And what does it say they have done? Did they run to fly, to get away? And the tribulation is taught to be something that's terrible, and people will be beaten into subjection and all that kind of thing. And the tribulation is not physical, it's spiritual, and it is a great apostasy. And what is so bad is that it spiritually robs. But now, what have these persons done in that verse? They have waited. They have waited for the real Messiah, and they have not been taken in by deception of false teaching and political ideas. 10. For in this mountain, again Zion, shall the hand of the Lord rest, and Moab shall be trodden down under him, even as straw is trodden down for the dunghill. Now, I want to point out that that hand there in the Hebrew is a fist. It's not just an outreached hand or a raised hand, but it is a fist, and a fist is used to destroy and to move things out of the way. Moab there, the Moabites, if you recall, were product of incest, and they were in their land. They were worshiping false gods, namely Molech, and indeed one of the kings passed his child through the fire, meaning he sacrificed to Molech by putting a live child into the fire. Now, Numbers 24:17 documents that. And when you think about that, trodden down, that's a threshing. Not all Moabites were evil. Ruth was a Moabite, and she turned and she followed her mother-in-law, Naomi, back to Bethlehem, the house of bread, and she accepted Yahweh, and she became an ancestress of the Messiah. So that sifting, when we sift grain, when we thresh, the straw goes to the dunghill, and the good grain falls to the floor and is, of course, good and picked up and saved. 12 to complete this chapter. And the fortress of the high fort of the walls shall he bring down, lay low, and bring to the ground, even to the dust. That would be Moab's fortress, and they, of course, were worshiping false gods and misleading the innocent, which is what will happen when you get false teaching and a morality and an idea of right and wrong that is not scripturally based. Now, that word dust is degradation in the Hebrew. And if you will think in Genesis, who Satan symbolically portrayed as a serpent, and it is said that he would crawl on his belly in the dust, and that doesn't refer to actual snakes. Snakes and their kind have a purpose in the creation, but it is a spiritual and symbolic idea that Satan will forever crawl in the dust. In other words, he will be permanently degraded for what he did in the Garden of Eden. Chapter 26. In that day shall this song be sung in the land of Judah. We have a strong city. Salvation will God appoint for walls and bulwarks. And this is the song of Judah. And Judah, of course, is separated from the 10 tribes of Israel. And those tribes will not be put together until the second coming. And again, it mentions the wall and the bulwarks, and that protection, of course, is God Himself. 2. Open ye the gates, that the righteous nation, which keepeth the truth, may enter in. And those, of course, again, are the elect, the righteous, those who have kept the truth. And in this age, the most important thing that we can do and be doing is to learn the truth and to pass it on. Those are the only ones who are going in, those who know the truth. 3. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusteth in thee. And this is a verse well worth underlining in your Bible and in your mind, that the keeping our mind on God and will keep us in perfect peace, and we can trust in Him. Think about Mark 13, and Jesus, it says, woe unto them who are with child, and that is during the tribulation. Many of us have been taught that that is a physical pregnancy. It is not. That is symbolic. Now, the church is symbolically called the bride of Christ. Christ is the bridegroom, and when he comes, he expects to find what kind of a bride? A virgin bride, not one who's been off and is symbolically bearing the child of another, a false god, and is nursing along that fake teaching. Has nothing to do with physical. And in studying the Bible, very often it is an issue of understanding, getting a good understanding, working with a teacher who will help with the actual Hebrew words, and also to point out the symbology and the fact that sometimes what we take to be physical is meant to be spiritual. Enough said. 4. Trust in the Lord forever, for the Lord Jehovah is everlasting strength. There are no J's in the Hebrew language. Jehovah should be Yahweh. And I would point out that everlasting peace, when that is taken to the Hebrew, means the rock of ages. 5. For he bringeth down them that dwell on high. The lofty city, he layeth it low even to the ground, he bringeth it even to the dust. And that is that final cleaning of the temple. Remember, Jesus said not one stone would be left standing. Well, that we are erroneously taught that a little tin-horn Roman general came in AD 70 and tore down the temple. Well, guess what? The Wailing Wall is still there, so there is one stone still standing, even today. 6. The foot shall tread it down, even the feet of the poor and the steps of the needy. And those poor, that should be translated humble. And those are, again, those who trust and stay with God and learn His Word and know and hold to the prophecies and don't get carried away with what some hot air man said or some piece of literature is written, and especially the lies of Satan. 7. The way of the just is uprightness. Thou, most upright, dost weigh the path of the just. And that just, again, should be in the Hebrew, that word is zadok, and that is a word for the elect. And again, that's of whom he speaks here. And when he says the does weigh the path, that means that path will be eased out and made clear. And it won't matter for the elect. It doesn't matter what kind of turmoil that we are in. If we put our trust in God and we lean on His understanding, and we have bothered to read and know the truth, He will make our path clear and straight. We have no worries. 8, yea, in the way of thy judgments, O Lord, have we waited for thee. The desire of our soul is to thy name and to the remembrance of thee. So again, the thing about waiting, and those who don't wait are going to be in bad trouble. 9, with my soul have I desired thee in the night, yea, with my spirit within me will I seek thee early. For when thy judgments are in the earth, the inhabitants of the world will learn righteousness. He said, seek early. And that is to say, don't wait for a later time. Seek Him early. 10. Let favor be showed to the wicked, yet will he not learn righteousness? That should be translated wicked one. That second word in the Hebrew has not been accurately translated into English. The wicked one, of course, is Satan. Will he not learn righteousness in the land of uprightness? Will he deal unjustly and will not behold the majesty of the Lord? No, he won't. If you listen, you could possibly hear people say, oh, God's so good. Why, He will even forgive Satan in the end. Well, these are biblically illiterate people, because you are told here that He's not going to change. And you've already been told that He and His Rephaim, those angels that followed Him, they have already been sentenced to the pit. They are the only that have so far been judged and found wanting. And at the very end, at the great white throne judgment, we are told that they will be put into the pit and they will be burned from the inside out. And that's what that everlasting burning means. They will simply be no more, just a little puff of residual smoke or whatever's left, floating around and away from God forever and ever and ever. And we don't want to join them. 11. When thy hand is lifted up, again, that's a fist. They will not see, but they shall see and be ashamed for their envy at the people. The people will be deceived and tricked, and they will be brought down. And the thing there to remember is God is always in control. Yea, the fire of thine enemies shall devour them. And that fire is really false light. The translation is wanting. 12. Lord, wilt thou ordain peace for us, for thou also hast wrought all our works in us. So there's peace of mind. We should always give God the credit, and He is powerful. And as humans, we are not. And as humans, when we are fearful and when we are anxious, it's always fear of the unknown and wondering what the future brings over and over and over and over and over. If many passages in the Bible we are told what was going to happen that has already happened, and we are told what is coming. And we are also told not to be afraid. Verse 13. 12. Lord, wilt thou ordain peace for us, for thou hast wrought all our works in us. We did do 12. 13. O Lord our God, other lords besides thee have had dominion over us, but by thee only will we make mention of thy name. Give God the credit. 13. O Lord our God, we've done that, excuse me. 14. They are dead. They shall not live, they are deceased, they shall not rise. Therefore thou hast visited and destroyed them. Thou hast made all their memory to perish. Now, this verse needs some translation. Dead, they are dead, and they are deceased. That word deceased, properly translated, is a proper name, and that word is Raphium, Raphium, and those are those fallen angels mentioned in Revelation 11. And they will be coming to the earth with Satan, and we are told that they will be dead in the streets of Jerusalem. And once again, this is not physical death, they are supernatural beings. It means they will be spiritually dead. And Jude, the brother of Jesus, in his chapter-long book, tells us that they will be in chains, and they can't overcome. They don't have a chance. They are sentenced. But anybody else always has a chance if they study, if they haven't had a chance in the millennium, and turn toward God. These Nephilim or Raphium are already sentenced to the pit. 15. Thou hast increased the nation, O Lord. Thou hast increased the nation, thou art glorified, thou hast removed it far unto the ends of the earth. They had increased and joined at the end of this earth age. In the millennium, there will be an increase. There will be persons who will come to believe and to accept the Christ. 16. Lord, in trouble have they visited thee. They poured out in prayer when thy chastening was upon us. And we're like that today. When things are going well, we're good time Charlies. Jezreun, as God called the Israelites when they were enjoying the worldly delights. And when things are going well, we might forget our daily devotion. We might slack on our prayers. We might not get so caught up in the world that we might forget to do things that we need to do. But if something bad happens, we get a bad diagnosis, we hear some bad news about our child, what do? The first thing we do is cry out and pour out when we're in trouble. And that prayer, that translated in that verse secret speech. And you never get around to really worshiping God until there's trouble, and then we'll scream loud and hard. 17, like as a woman with child that draweth near the time of her delivery is in pain and crieth out in her pangs, so have we been in thy sight, O Lord. Oh yeah, we'll scream. 18, we have been with child, we have been in pain, we have, as it were, brought forth wind, we have not wrought any deliverance in the earth, neither have the inhabitants of the world fallen. Now that contains a little something there. They brought forth wind. That is like it means passing gas. I mean, can you think of how what a limited contribution that has been, that it's like letting off a burp or worse. 19, thy dead men shall live together with my dead body, shall they arise, awake and sing, ye that dwell in dust, for thy dew is as the dew of herbs, and the earth shall cast out the dead. Now, that dead there is not the Raphaim. And think about the dew. It sparkles in the sun and it cleans up. And the Raphaim, they'll be gone. And those others can have an opportunity to rise. And in the millennium, at the end of the millennium, God will judge, and we can count on Him to be a fair judge. I would point you to Daniel 12:2, which says, I'll rise from the dust, and we can rise from the dust, and that doesn't mean the grave. Again, dust is any kind of degradation. It means sin. But old Satan now, he's got to drag his belly through the dust forever and ever. That's a Hebraism, dust. It's degradation. And this is kind of a confusing passage if you don't put the Hebrew word in proper connotation here, because it sounds like rising from the dust, coming up out of the grave, and that's not what it means at all. It means being in degradation, and we are in degradation when we're in sin. 20, come, my people, enter thou into thy chambers, and shut thy doors about thee, and hide thyself as if it were for a little moment, until the indignation be overpast. Okay, what do we do in that time? Well, we put ourselves in a secure chamber, and that's not a closet, and it's not a prayer tent. This is none other than Christ Himself, and He is a place. Going to our Christ is a place where we can enter in to a chamber that is full of peace and full of protection, and will keep us hidden. And if we need it in that brief moment of 5 months when Satan is on the earth, that will abide. And if we are in trouble here and now, we can always go into that wonderful chamber and be protected and hidden. 21, for behold, the Lord cometh out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. The earth shall also disclose her blood, and shall no more cover her slain. It will be a time of correction, and there won't be any unsolved mysteries. This at the end. This is an either or prophecy. Either we are with God, trusting in God, and aware of the truth and aware of what the scriptures say. That is the up and coming prophecy. Or we will remain ignorant, away from God, and we will put our trust in man, and we will put our trust in what we are told, even though it could be a lie. And that is the part of this chapter that is about the end times, Isaiah's revelation. This video has been an outreach of the United Methodist Church in Essex, Missouri.